So for the sake of the newer persons, we're going in these evening sessions, sometimes we'll go to the deep end of the pool. So you have to bear with us. Chaitanya Charitamrita is the most advanced text, as most of you know. You begin with Bhagavad Gita, and in Bhagavad Gita you find out that there is Krishna. He says, to me, unto me, and I am this. And then you realize there is someone, a personality named Krishna. And then you can graduate to Srimad Bhagavatam, the graduate study. And there you find all about Krishna. And in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, of course, you have the pastimes of Krishna. But in Chaitanya Charitamrita, the postgraduate study, you are introduced to Radha Krishna Lila, the science of Radha and Krishna. So we're going to read from Chaitanya Charitamrita and try to speak a bit. For those of you who are not familiar, so familiar with Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is the presentation of the teachings and activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself in the role of being Krishna's own devotee. Just like if a teacher is trying to teach little Danya here how to write, and she can't get it. She can't understand it. So the teacher comes and imitates a pupil learning how to write, just so everyone can see this is how you do it. So Krishna himself has come as his own devotee to show how to practice devotional service in perfection. Now, from the logical point of view, of course, the Supreme Absolute Truth is beyond logic. But if you say that the Absolute Truth is the source of everything, everything means everything. And so one of the possibilities of the inconceivable, unlimited Absolute Truth is that the Absolute Truth can take the form of a devotee and show you how to be a devotee. But more importantly, from Krishna's point of view, Krishna wants to taste what it's like to be a devotee. Because the secret of bhakti is that the devotee, through devotional service to Krishna, relishes more than Krishna. So as we often explain, how can Krishna's title as a supreme enjoyer be intact when his devotees relish more than him? But Krishna is still the supreme enjoyer because he comes as a devotee. So many people have a problem understanding that there's a supreme enjoyer. And then you turn to Chaitanya Charitamrita and you find out that the supreme enjoyer would rather be enjoyed. The devotee is enjoyed by the Supreme Absolute Truth. But the Supreme Absolute Truth would rather be the enjoyed than the enjoyer, because the enjoyed tastes more pleasure. So this is the confidential mystery of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Those persons who become exhausted with material enjoyment and realize its frustrations, its limitations, if they have a little bit of intelligence, they want to escape material existence. And often they construe that escaping material existence means that they are Brahman, they are God. it's shocking for them to hear that the genuine Supreme Absolute Truth would rather be a devotee. In fact, Chaitanya Charitamrita reveals that all the avatars of Godhead would rather be devotees. So here we are trying to be the lords of the universe. The supreme proprietor we're trying to be, the supreme enjoyer. And the real supreme enjoyer and proprietor would rather be a devotee, to render devotional service for the sake of the Supreme. So that is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's Krishna coming to taste what it's like to be a devotee. In that way, Krishna retains his position as a supreme enjoyer by being a devotee. And particularly, as the older devotees know, Lord Chaitanya is tasting the position and emotions of the dearest devotee of Krishna, Srimati Radharani. So in this way, Chaitanya Charitamrita reveals the deepest mysteries of spiritual existence. But of course, if you don't understand Bhagavad Gita, you're not going to understand Chaitanya Charitamrita. And even the most learned academics can't understand Chaitanya Charitamrita, as I often point out. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is there in the historical record. There's no doubt about it. He appeared a little over 500 years ago in West Bengal and traveled all over India and headquartered in Orissa, Jagannath Puri. It's there in the historical record, the mundane historical record. But even in India, to actually understand who is Lord Chaitanya, to have a proper understanding is very rare. They know Lord Chaitanya generally as a great saint, and the mundane historians, like the British, know him as a great social reformer. One history of that part of India at that time, one presents that Chaitanya started out wonderfully as a social reformer, disrupting the caste system, spreading egalitarianism, and then he went to Jagannath Puri and just lost the plot completely. If you can't understand you're not the body, how are you going to understand the ecstasies of pure love of Krishna? And the the artificial tendency is that once you understand material life is distressful and karma simply causes problems, then you think the solution is negation. No forms, no activities, no qualities. That is what you speculate the ultimate is like. So then you have Krishna's pastimes in Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, and then Krishna comes as Lord Chaitanya. In this way, all our conceptions of monotonous oneness are destroyed. Even in material life, you say that variety is the spice of life. Krishna has unlimited variegatedness. That is his display of supremacy, unlimited variegatedness. All as the energies and expansions of Krishna. So we're going to go to Madhya Lila chapter 3 of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. We'll start with text 108. And if you don't really understand this, just listen, and you'll find a deep spiritual attractiveness, even though intellectually you don't understand yet. Of course, if you go on hearing and hearing, you gradually will understand. So the scene is right after Lord Chaitanya has taken sannyas. And he's wanting to go to Vrindavan, but he gets lost in ecstasy. And he comes across his own devotees like Nityananda and Advaita, who trick him into going to Shantipur. Shantipur is nearby Navadvip. And they tell him that the river Ganga is the river Yamuna. And then Lord Chaitanya comes to more external consciousness and wonders, if I'm in Vrindavan and in the Jamuna River, why is Advaita Acharya here? Advaita Acharya lives by the Ganga way over in Shantipur. So Lord Chaitanya realizes that he's not in Vrindavan. And Advaita Acharya, who many of you know, generally speaking, is Mahavishnu. He's not a jiva, he's not a living entity. He's an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just as is Nityananda. So Advaita Acharya invites Lord Chaitanya, come, now that you realize you're not in Vrindavan, you're nearby my house, come to my house for lunch. I promise you, the vegetables will be very simple. You can have a palmful of rice. We know you're very austere. And of course, many of you know what happened. Advaita Acharya had prepared a massive feast. And Lord Chaitanya tried to, because Lord Chaitanya wanted to demonstrate rigidly the principles of sannyas. Very great austerities. But his devotees wanted the opposite. Why do you have to perform austerities? You're the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We all know that. And Lord Chaitanya would insist, no, I am a devotee trying to get out of material existence and increase my love for Krishna. So Advaita Acharya had prepared this massive feast. And Lord Chaitanya was hesitant. I can't take this. And what famously did Advaita Acharya tell him? Stop pretending. We know who you are. In Jagannath Puri, as Lord Jagannath, you eat 54 offerings a day. So we're at the point where that lunch is over, during which Lord Nityananda and Advaita Acharya had a quarrel, ostensibly a quarrel. It was a loving affair. Lord Chaitanya had complained what? This is too much food. Any of you ever had that complaint? This prasad is too opulent, it's too much. No one's ever complained that. Complained the opposite. But Lord Nityananda, he also complained, but he said, this is not enough. I've been fasting for 3 days and I hope to fill my belly. This is not this is a tiny bit of food. What's the use of it? Advaita Acharya retorted, who are you to criticize in this way? You're an unknown. We don't know what is your caste. We don't know what is your family background. We don't know what your occupation is. Because Nityananda is just beyond all that. He's a avaduta, beyond all Vedic rules and regulations. So it's true what Advaita was saying. And Nityananda replied, whatever I am, I am. It's your duty to feed me. This is nothing for my belly. So we're at the end of that scene where Nityananda tells Advaita, because you have offended Mahaprasad, your penalty is that you must invite 100 sannyasis for lunch. And what was Advaita Acharya's response? After you, I'll never invite another sannyasi to my house. So, Lord Chaitanya, Advaita Acharya, and Nityananda have finished their lunch, and now the associates of Lord Chaitanya are taking prasad. Meanwhile, what's going on? When the people of Shantipur, this is text 108, when the people of Shantipur heard that Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was staying there, they all immediately came to see his lotus feet. This is the first time they're seeing him after shaving his head and taking sannyas and wearing sannyas attire. Being very pleased, all the people loudly began to shout the holy name of the Lord. Hari! Hari! Indeed, they became struck with wonder upon seeing the beauty of the Lord. How can you deny that spiritual experience of seeing the unlimited beauty of the Supreme Absolute Truth? Because people have no awareness of that beauty, either through description or experience. They are attracted. You must then become attracted to the false temporary beauties of material existence. But you have to be attracted to some semblance of beauty. You can't resist that. So what is the ultimate source of all beauty? So Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself, unlimitedly beautiful. So the people were struck with wonder seeing that infinite beauty right before their eyes. What did they see? They saw Gaura Deha, Lord Chaitanya's golden complexion. They saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's very fair complexion body and its bright luster, which conquered the brilliance of the sun. Over and above this was the beauty of the saffron garments that glittered upon his body. He had just taken sannyas, so he's wearing saffron garments. But all the paraphernalia of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is spiritual. Gaura, fair complexion, means golden. Doesn't mean like milk. The color of milk, it means the color of molten gold. Gaura Deha, a golden body. People came and went with great pleasure, taking darshan of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There was no calculating how many people assembled there before the day was over. As soon as it was evening, Advaita Acharya began the congregational chanting. He even began to dance himself, and the Lord saw the performance. So they're having an evening program. In the old days of ISKCON, when everyone lived in an ashram, the opposite of what is today, there was morning and evening program. I may have mentioned before, this was called the ISKCON sandwich. Morning program, devotional service all day, evening program. As I said, that's what everyone practically lived in the ashram. And no question of missing Mongol Arti. But if you missed the evening program, people began to wonder, you right, you all right, Prabhu? You got a problem? Mongol Arti, oh my goodness, that was inconceivable to miss Mongol Arti. But the battleground was, just like in U.S. elections, they have these battleground states. Well, the battleground part of the devotee schedule in the 70s was evening program. Forget morning program. In no way anyone's going to miss the Mongol Arti. I remember from the time I moved into the temple, the first morning I got up at 3 a.m. because I wanted to have ample time to put on a dhoti for the first time and go to Mongol Arti without being late. So in the Brooklyn temple, I got up at 3 a.m. to practice putting. And after that, for 5 years straight, I didn't miss a Mongol Arti. I wasn't even late until I went overseas to Soviet bloc and underground outreach, which had all kinds of austerities. But for 5 years straight, while living in temples as following a normal schedule, never even was late for a Mongol Arti. What speak of missing it? But as I said, the battleground was the evening program. Prabhupada would write letters. He would say, I'm here in Vrindavan attending evening programs given by my disciples. How can you be a better Paramahansa than your Guru Maharaj? All devotees must go to the morning and evening program. So here you see where it comes from. Advaita Acharya is starting the evening program at his home in Shantipur. He starting it by dancing himself. When Advaita Acharya began to dance, Nityananda Prabhu began dancing behind him. Haridas Thakur, being very pleased, also began dancing behind him. Advaita Acharya said, now this is a song that's actually very confidential, but Advaita Acharya is going to say the words. My dear friends, what shall I say? Today I have received the highest transcendental pleasure. After many, many days, Lord Krishna is in my house. This is a song, as the purport explains, composed by Vidyapati. And it's composed to commemorate the separation of Krishna from Radharani during Krishna's absence in Mathura. It is thought that this song was sung by Srimati Radharani when Krishna returned. It is technically called Mathura Viraha. So, again, my dear friends, what shall I say? Today I have received the highest transcendental pleasure. After many, many days, Lord Krishna is in my house. So what is this about? Commemorating the separation of Krishna from Radharani during Krishna's absence in Mathura. Is Krishna ever absent from Vrindavan? This is a theme that you can meditate on for countless years. Does Krishna actually take a step out of Vrindavan? No, but it can seem that way. Because Krishna has his unmanifest Lila that can't be detected with ordinary vision, and he has his manifest Lila, of which you can see, but you won't understand what you're seeing, but you can see the various personalities. So if you want to know deeper the science of Mathura Viraha, Krishna's apparent leaving Vrindavan to go to Mathura, which is a very key phenomenon in the spiritual life of older devotees. When I say older, I mean spiritually older. To understand that, you can read Rupa Goswami's Laghu Bhagavatamrita. The BBT has published a very fine rendition of that. And there, Rupa Goswami explains that, yes, Krishna never takes a step out of Vrindavan. He's always there, even though you can't see him. And even though the Brijbasis, the devotees of Vrindavan, think that Krishna is gone, when their feelings of separation reach their peak, Krishna appears. He's always there, unmanifest, in order to increase their feelings of separation. And then when the feelings of separation reach, you would say, boiling point, then Krishna appears. But he's always there. So Rupa Goswami explains, and I'm saying this for the benefit of the older devotees. We're having like a one-room schoolhouse here. All the grades in one classroom. So Rupa Goswami explains that Krishna appears in two ways in Vrindavan. By revelation and by actual, what we'd understand as arrival. So when after he kills Dantavakra and he crosses the Yamuna River and comes back to Vrindavan, that is one way. That's the manifest pastime. It's visible to ordinary vision. But Krishna's actually never left Vrindavan. You could say, he's lurking always in the background. And he surges like electricity. He surges forth when there's feelings of separation of the devotees reach a peak. And that happened when Uddhava brought that letter. And Uddhava read the letter to the gopis. At that moment, when the feelings of separation were reaching their peak, Krishna appeared through revelation. So Rupa Goswami remembers there's two ways how Krishna manifests himself in Vrindavan. By revelation, due to the feelings of separation, in which the residents of Vrindavan, they miss Krishna so much that missing him produces his presence, so to speak. And then Krishna actually, he can leave Vrindavan and come back, arrive back. So there are two things going on. There's the manifest and the unmanifest. Manifest meaning what you can see, and unmanifest, what you don't see unless you're qualified. So it's very intricate. So Advaita Acharya is quoting a song composed by Vijapati, presenting Mathura Viraha, commemorating the separation of Krishna from Radharani during Krishna's absence when he went to Mathura. And then from Mathura he went to Dwarka. We'll continue. Advaita Acharya led the Sankirtan party, and with great pleasure he sang this verse. There was a manifestation of ecstatic perspiration, shivering, raised hairs, tears in the eyes, and sometimes thundering and bellowing. These ecstasies, as we'll hear later, are all described in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is summarized in Srila Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion. Very technical are these terminologies for various ecstatic states, ecstatic emotions, ecstatic symptoms. In case you don't know, that's one of my humble attempts at devotional service for the BBT. We're producing Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu in 5 volumes, around 700 pages each. And there you'll see how ingenious was Srila Prabhupada to be able to take all those 18,000 verses of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and encapsulate them in nectar of devotion. So nectar of devotion is the summary study of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which presents the science of devotional ecstasy and love of Krishna, beginning with sadhana bhakti, devotional service performed under rules and regulations, the therapeutic stage, and then rising to the relishing stage, and then preliminary love of Krishna, bhava, and then prem, mature love of Krishna. It's all described in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which Srila Prabhupada summarized as nectar of devotion. So Advaita Acharya is breaking out in ecstatic symptoms. Ecstatic perspiration. This is a spiritual symptom, not a material phenomenon. Shivering, raised hairs, tears in the eyes, thundering and bellowing. These are all symptoms of ecstatic love of Krishna. We'll continue. While dancing, Advaita Acharya would sometimes turn around and catch the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I always like to visualize this. While dancing, he's turning around and catching the feet, and then turning around, catching the feet again. You'll probably try to do that here next. Your next kirtan. Sri Advaita Acharya would say, "Many days you escaped me by bluffing. Now I have you in my home, and I will keep you bound up." So speaking, Advaita Acharya performed congregational chanting with great pleasure for 3 hours that night and danced all the time. You get the sense that dancing is very important in bhakti, and it is. Yes, sometimes sitting down singing bhajan is very nice, but we cannot forget, we're followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Dancing is very important. And who doesn't like to dance? So an important part of bhakti is dancing in kirtan. And in the case of Advaita Acharya's kirtan, he has Lord Chaitanya right there. And so Advaita Acharya is dancing and turning around, and then somehow or other he's able to catch the lotus feet, touch to the head, and then spin around again and spin around. So he's gone on for 3 hours. When Advaita Acharya danced in that way, Lord Chaitanya felt ecstatic love for Krishna. And because of his separation, Lord Chaitanya is feeling separation from Krishna because he's in the role of Srimati Radharani. Waves and flames of love increased. You can't experience anything like this in the material world. Waves and flames of love. Can you imagine saying that to someone? I feel waves and flames of love for you. Such a phenomenon doesn't exist in the material world. So Lord Chaitanya has come. He's Krishna who has come to taste what it's like to feel separation from Krishna, because separation from Krishna is more intense than meeting Krishna. This is hard for many of us to understand. You think of your own material experience. Meeting the beloved is the ultimate. Oh. But in the spiritual reality, feeling separation is more intense than meeting the beloved. The feelings of separation, the waves and flames of separation are more intense. So all the topmost Krishna bhaktas want to feel separation from Krishna, even though it seems so painful. Externally, it looks miserable, but it's the greatest ecstasy. The example Sanatana Goswami gives in Brihad Bhagavatamrita is of ice. If someone takes an ice cube out of the refrigerator and presses it against your skin, what do you feel? Burning. But how can it burn you? It's ice. But externally it looks like, or it feels like your skin is burning. But actually you're experiencing the coldness of the ice. But it can seem like burning. So similarly, love of Krishna and separation can seem like pain, but actually it's the greatest ecstasy. And you've heard me explain before, Srila Prabhupada's example about the sun. When the sun goes down all the way today, what do you feel? Most persons would say, you feel cold. But Srila Prabhupada corrected, no, you don't actually feel cold, you feel the absence of the sun. You're in that bhava, that existential state of feeling separation from the sun. Separation from the sun, and then there's separation from Krishna. That's an existential state. So just like there's meeting Krishna, there's also separation from Krishna. So Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and Chaitanya Charitamrita describe the different aspects of meeting Krishna, and especially they describe separation from Krishna. You would think, who would make a big deal out of separation from the beloved? The big deal is being with the beloved, meeting, connecting. But in the spiritual reality, it's the reverse. Feeling separation is the greatest ecstasy. But externally, it looks like misery. Just like if you're separated from someone dear to you on the material plane, it's miserable. And you think, oh, if I could only be with that person, that would be the real delight. Now, in love of Krishna, in separation, you can feel like that, if I could only be with the beloved, but you're actually at the topmost ecstasy, more than meeting the beloved. So this is the ultimate understandings of Bhakti Yoga. People talk about God is love, love is God, but have no way to expound upon that, to expand upon that. First of all, there has to be attractiveness for there to be love. There needs to be beauty, activities, qualities, so forth. Otherwise, what are you going to love? Someone says, I love God. That's a nice sentiment, but how can you be attracted? They'll say, well, we're attracted to his son, but his son talked about his father. So in this way, Chaitanya Charitamrita is drawing you into the deepest mysteries of love of God. And Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself coming to distribute that mystery to even the most unqualified persons. So we've talked about Advaita Acharya dancing and Lord Chaitanya feeling ecstatic love for Krishna. And because of his separation, Lord Chaitanya is feeling separation. The waves and flames of love have increased. Being agitated by the ecstasy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu suddenly fell to the ground. Seeing this, Advaita Acharya stopped dancing. When Mukunda saw the ecstasy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he understood the feelings of the Lord and began to sing many stanzas, augmenting the force of the Lord's ecstasy. So this is what devotees, in their own rudimentary beginning way, can do. Increase each other's ecstasy. This is most expertly done on the topmost levels of bhakti. So Mukunda, he's a devotee of Lord Chaitanya. He sees, my Lord is in ecstasy. I understand his feelings. I'll sing the correct songs that will increase that ecstasy. So this is the action of what Lord Kapiladev says in the third canto of Bhagavatam. Satam prasangan mama virya samvido bhavanti hit karna rasayana kata. In the association of sincere devotees, the taste, the sweetness, and the power of talks about Krishna increase exponentially. So much so that easily the doorway to liberation swings wide open and you progress through all the phases of spiritual development up until bhava and then prema. This is what talking about Krishna can do in proper association. And according to the level of that association, the spiritual experience increases. So here is Mukunda playing the role of an ideal devotee, seeing that another devotee, i.e. Lord Chaitanya, is in ecstasy. So Mukunda begins to recite what will increase that ecstasy of Lord Chaitanya. This is sadhu sangha. Advaita Acharya raised the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to help him dance. So remember, Lord Chaitanya had collapsed to the floor in ecstasy. So Advaita Acharya raises his body up to help him dance. But Lord Chaitanya, after hearing Mukunda's quotations, couldn't be held due to his bodily symptoms. I don't know if that's ever happened to any of you. That you were in a state where you couldn't be held by anyone. Someone tries to pick you off the floor and your body is in such a state that you can't stay in their grasp. In other words, of course, these experiences are rare in the material world. In fact, deeper in Chaitanya Charitamrita, you'll read accounts of Lord Chaitanya displaying symptoms that are beyond anything that's ever experienced in the material world. So actually what you're hearing about in Madhya Lila chapter 3 are just preliminaries for what's going to go on in Ancha Lila. Lord Chaitanya hasn't arrived in Jagannath Puri yet. That's where his most confidential ecstasies and transformations will be revealed. He's now in Shantipur, and he's going to leave Shantipur and go to Jagannath Puri. So again, this is what good association can do. Of course, we can't claim to be agitated to go into the ecstasies like Lord Chaitanya and his associates, but we can inspire one another with talks about Krishna, which produce real feeling. It's not just some doctrinal injunction. Talk about Krishna, Prabhu. We must talk about Krishna. It brings about the presence of Krishna according to the level, the spiritual level of those participating. So that's why Lord Kapila says, Satam Prasangan. Talks amongst those who are dedicated to bhakti are not ordinary. And according to the depth of realization of the talkers and the hearers, various levels of spiritual experience happen. So now we're going deeper into the ecstasies felt by Lord Chaitanya. Tears fell from his eyes and his whole body trembled. His bodily hairs stood on end. He perspired heavily and his words faltered. Sometimes he stood and sometimes he fell and sometimes he cried. And Mukunda is going on, augmenting these ecstatic feelings. He knows what to say to deepen the ecstasy, because Lord Chaitanya is feeling separation from Krishna. He's Krishna himself, tasting what it's like to be separated from himself. He's taken the role of his dearest devotee, most precious devotee, Srimati Radharani. Mukunda sang, "My dear intimate friend, what has not happened to me? Due to the effects of the poison of love for Krishna, my body and mind have been severely afflicted." What's that all about? The purport explains. When Mukunda saw that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was feeling ecstatic pain, you would think pain is pain. Who wants pain? But remember the example of the ice pressed against your arm. What seems to be burning is actually cold. Similarly, the agony of separation from Krishna seems to be pain, but it's actually the greatest ecstasy. So when Mukunda saw that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was feeling ecstatic pain and manifesting ecstatic bodily symptoms, all due to feelings of separation from Krishna, he, Mukunda, sang songs about meeting with Krishna. Advaita Acharya also stopped dancing. So Mukunda helps to raise the feelings of separation to the peak, and then at the right moment he starts singing songs and reciting songs about meeting Krishna to ease those feelings of separation. This is a whole art, science, and culture. He knows just when to, all right. Now let me talk about meeting with Krishna. So what is Mukunda going to sing? My feeling is like this. My mind burns day and night, and I can get no rest. If there were some place I could go to meet Krishna, I would immediately fly there. So Mukunda has changed gears, so to speak. He's not singing about separation anymore. He's singing about meeting Krishna. My mind burns day and night. There's nothing in material existence that matches the dynamics and intensity of these spiritual emotions. But just to give you some glimpse, the words are there describing my mind burns day and night. I can get no rest. If there was some place I could go to meet Krishna, I would immediately fly there. This stanza was sung by Mukunda in a very sweet voice. But as soon as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard this stanza, his mind went to pieces. We can't imagine such shattering of the mind. So in the purport, you get a synopsis of the depths and expansiveness you'll find in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is summarized very briefly in Nectar Devotion. Purport. And as you become an older devotee, you start to really take these descriptions of ecstasy very seriously, and you want to become more familiar with them. As new devotees, you just, oh, this is way over my head. This emotion, that emotion, this ecstatic state, that ecstatic state. I'm just trying not to overeat. Trying not to offend devotees. Anyway, we'll give it a go with this purport. Harsha is described in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Harsha is experienced when one finally attains the desired goal of life and consequently becomes very glad. When harsha is present, the body shivers and one's bodily hairs stand on end. There are perspiration, tears, and an outburst of passion and madness. The mouth becomes swollen, and one experiences inertia and illusion. When a person attains his desired object and feels very fortunate, the luster of his body increases. Because of his own qualities and feelings of greatness, he does not care for anyone else, and this is called garva, or pride. In this condition, one utters prayers and does not reply to others' inquiries. Looking at one's own body, concealing one's desires, and not heeding the words of others are symptoms visible in the ecstasy of garva. What can you say about this? At least you should understand that whatever emotions are there in the material world are perverted, distorted reflections of the unlimited emotions of the spiritual world. We like being emotional, but we need to understand the science of spiritual emotion and gradually develop an attraction for that science, because that's the real us. So it may seem so far beyond you that you think, what's the point in hearing about this? Harsha and garva and bodies shivering and perspiration, tears, outburst of passion and madness. I think, what's the point in hearing about that? It's way out there, far above us. But by hearing, and serving, you gradually develop attraction for this subject matter. Because everyone loves love, but we don't know what real love is. By hearing this subject matter, again and again, you start developing an attraction, because you are spirit soul, part of Krishna. That relationship starts to become revived just by hearing. You still delight in hearing chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita. You're not the body, because Krishna's speaking it. But your comprehensiveness and depth increases so much that you become attracted to hearing about what Rupa Goswami is explaining, the various shades and aspects of love of Krishna, because love is everyone's favorite subject matter. You know what it's like, most of you, when you thought you were in love. So this is why Chaitanya Charitamrita is so important. the entire body of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to totter due to the onslaughts of various ecstatic symptoms. Okay. How can we conceive of such? The entire body begins to totter because too many ecstatic symptoms are happening all at once. Sounds unreal, doesn't it? As a result, he immediately fell to the ground and his breathing almost stopped. Upon seeing the condition of the Lord, all the devotees became very anxious. Then, suddenly, the Lord got up and began to make thundering sounds. Upon standing up, the Lord said, "Go on speaking, go on speaking." He wants more kata, more kata. Thus he began to dance, overwhelmed with pleasure. He said, wait a minute, I thought he was suffering. But that so-called suffering is the greatest pleasure. No one could understand the strong waves of this ecstasy. How are we ever going to understand all this? As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktya Mama Bijanati, only by devotional service can I be understood. Lord Nityananda began to walk with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to see that he would not fall. And Advaita Acharya and Haridas Thakur followed them, dancing. Again, dancing is very important. In this way, the Lord danced for at least 3 hours. Sometimes these symptoms of ecstasy were visible, including pleasure, moroseness, and many other ways of ecstatic emotional love. The Lord had been fasting for 3 days, and after that period he took eatables sumptuously. Thus, when he danced and jumped high, he became a little fatigued. Being fully absorbed in love of Godhead, he would not understand his fatigue, but Nityananda Prabhu, catching him, stopped his dancing. Although the Lord was fatigued, Nityananda Prabhu kept him steady by holding him. At that time, Advaita Acharya suspended the chanting and by rendering various services to the Lord, made him lie down to take rest. So these associates of Lord Chaitanya, they know just what to do at the right time. How to augment his ecstasy, how to change his ecstasy from separation to meeting, and they can see, all right, time for him to take rest. Of course, this is all transcendental experience. Lord Chaitanya has no material body, no material perspiration or fatigue. This is just Lila. These are pastimes. Lord Chaitanya is demonstrating what it's like to be at the topmost level of bhakti. So our last verse for today. For 10 continuous days, Advaita Acharya held feasting and chanting in the evening. He served the Lord in this way without any change. So this is the program. This is the ideal program in bhakti. Chanting, dancing, taking prasad, hearing some kathas, some talks about Krishna. Lord Chaitanya and his associates are showing you how to do it. Of course, the way they do it is out of this world. But still, they're leaving footprints for you to follow. So tomorrow, we'll continue from, as things enter another phase. Shachi Mata, Lord Chaitanya's mother, is going to come to Shantipur. And that's going to be a whole drama, because she hasn't seen Lord Chaitanya since he took sannyas. So she's going to get her first look at Lord Chaitanya as a sannyasi. He left home. And now the devotees have brought her to the house of Advaita Acharya to see Lord Chaitanya. And so there'll be dialogue between those two, between Lord Chaitanya and his mother. What's another name for Lord Chaitanya? Matri Bhakta, the best devotee of the mother. But you would say, how can he be the best devotee of the mother when he left home at 24? But that we'll find out tomorrow. Any questions? Comments? Realizations? Illuminations? Yes.
With regard, in the book, the story about the lives of Vaishnava saints, it's described Maharaj Birambir, one of Srinivasa Acharya's disciples, who stole Rupa Goswami's manuscripts. And when he held those manuscripts, the reaction he got was that these were very transcendental literatures. So in your service in translating the Bhakti Rasamrita,
I don't translate. I do a little bit of, I don't know Sanskrit. I'm not a Sanskrit scholar. I just organize the whole project, but I don't translate. We have Sanskritists who do that.
okay. Did you get to hold those manuscripts?
The only manuscript from a glorious Acharya I ever held in my hands was Prabhupada's manuscripts for Srimad Bhagavatam. Especially the last chapter he did, 13th chapter of the 10th canto, Brahma Vimohana Lila, the bewilderment of Lord Brahma. I had that in my hands, and then I burst out crying because I knew this is the last of the Bhaktivedanta purports for this world. And then 3 days later, the news came that Srila Prabhupada had left the ordinary vision of this world. So I still remember reading that manuscript and just amazed, how could someone write like this when doctors say he should have been in so much pain that he would be screaming out. Yet here he is making jokes about four-headed scientists and like four-headed Brahmas or four-headed scientists. What do they know? So I remember turning the pages. The envelope, the courier package came from Vrindavan. I was the production manager, and last pair of English eyes checking manuscripts before they checking proofs before they went to the printer. And I held it in my hands, okay? And then I started crying. This is the last one. Our whole life for 3 years had been how to meet Prabhupada's demands that his books come out immediately. So we were on a 3-year marathon. What are you going to criticize us for, not having a balance? For 3 years, it was just round the clock. I used to work round the clock 18 days straight and then go to the Laguna Beach Temple for 3 days break. And then come back and do another 18-day round the clock stint. Do I regret such a pace? No. It was Krishna's mercy on my rascal mind that I could be fully absorbed in such devotional service. What were you going to do? We're in our 20s. What are we going to do with all that energy anyway? We won't say. We're in our 20s. We're loaded with energy. You know? So Prabhupada took it all. So we were on, there were book distribution marathons, there were construction marathons, there were book production marathons. These form unforgettable experiences that you can savor as most devotees will enter family life, but they can look back at such memories. And no, full engagement is possible. And many of them, even as householders, will figure out how to have full engagement or aspire for it. So such, you might say, imbalances become a treasured part of your devotional memory. So yes, I remember those intensities. How would you like to read Chaitanya Charitamrita 14 hours a day and there can't be any mistakes? It's like taking a physics exam, 14 hours every day. And then the reward, Prabhupada wrote that by this effort, you will all go back to Godhead. So hopefully we're holding on to the ticket. Hopefully we're not dropping the ticket. So yes, you could say that was over endeavor. But over endeavor at meeting whose request? Srila Prabhupada made an impossible request. Even today, we can't figure out how it happened that we could fulfill such a request. It was like a different energy descended from the spiritual world. Once we agreed to do it and stopped thinking, oh no, this makes no sense at all. And you couldn't get around Prabhupada, you know. You couldn't say, as I often point out, you couldn't say, he's really telling us something imbalanced and extreme. I think we're going to get a Siksha guru. You couldn't do that to Prabhupada. You couldn't get around him. He just planted his cane in the sand while the devotees were walking on the beach and said, either you do this or you're all rascals. That means I cut you off. What would you say? What kind of guru is this? I'm out of here. What would you say, Madhupan Lila? Too much. What would you say, Shastrakrit? That's what devotees told him. Impossible. And he gave his famous response. Impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. He just left you no exit route. You couldn't escape. And once devotees finally agreed, it was like another energy descended. And we started thinking, actually, it could be possible. Once we agreed to do it. Otherwise, before we agreed to do it, we were just totally bewildered. This makes no sense. I'm trying to think of an example. If you were told to do something like that here. In 3 days, we want a new barn put up, completely. You say, yeah, but try to do it. It made no sense it made no material sense what Srila Prabhupada was asking us to do. But once we finally wrapped our heads around it, and you didn't have much time, you had overnight to get and think about it. Energy from the spiritual world descended. So it was an unforgettable experience. You had to be there to believe it. So that was the Srila Prabhupada that many of you don't know. Many of you think, oh, he was very loving and warm. Yeah, of course he was very loving and warm, but he wanted what he wanted, as he was being very loving and warm. This is the Prabhupada everyone's forgotten. He was very demanding while being loving and warm. You either do this or... So that's how he spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, with love, warmth, and demands. Tolerance, so much tolerance. While making demands, he would tolerate so much foolishness. But still, he's making demands. When you go to how many of you have been to the Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan? You have no idea the demands behind all that. Or the Mayapur project, the demands again. Because Prabhupada felt his time was limited. So if you get a chance to spend some of your youth, to sacrifice some of your youthful energy for Krishna, of course, yes, you have to take care of your health. Yes, you have to eat properly, you have to sleep properly. But at the same time, these special opportunities come and you can jump on it. So we were young, and what were we going to do with our energies in our 20s? What were we going to do? If Prabhupada didn't take it all, what would we have done? So that's the way it was back then. We wanted the mercy so much. We'd do anything. Prabhupada said, if anyone wants the special dust of my feet, go preach in communist countries. Psh, we're gone. That's the way it was. Naturally, of course, you have to structure your life so you can go the distance in bhakti. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, don't miss out on special opportunities to rise above the norm and sacrifice something for Krishna. That's what you'll remember all, as you're giving up this body. So you have to know how to conserve energy and how to expend energy. Not just conserve. Spend it. And then conserve. So this is the rhythm of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. Of course, we've learned a lot since those old days about how to be more healthy. I remember during my marathon shifts with the BBT, at that time, lunch prasadam was potatoes, carrots, and other vegetables, but lots of chunks of potatoes and carrots all soaked in ghee. And then white flour breadsticks, that thick, deep fried in ghee. And after a lunch like that, you're supposed to sit at a desk for 10 hours straight and do literary work. I remember I broke ranks. I deviated. I went and asked the BBT director at the time, can I please have steamed vegetables and chapatis every day? That was a radical request. Steamed vegetables and chapatis. Oh my. Where is this guy coming from? I said, where am I coming from? I want to stay awake. I got to read 14 hours straight without, I can't overlook any mistakes. I got to stay awake. I'm the last pair of eyes on Prabhupada's books before they go to the printer. He wants steamed vegetables. What's wrong with him? These days it's the reverse now. Now you got to beg for something in ghee. Ghee, where is it? Anything else? Yes.
Maharaj, when I hear about all these ecstatic symptoms and the amazing pastimes of pure devotees, especially Srila Prabhupada. I always keep asking myself how to follow the footsteps of those great devotees and aspire and to be inspired at the same time, not to imitate cheaply of their behavior. Could you?
By hearing about sacrificial devotional service, you develop a desire to somehow or other increase your devotional service. And that increase will look differently according to your ashram, your various other personal aspects of your life. But I'm talking about the core principle is to hear and then desire happens in your heart. And Krishna as a super soul in your heart notices, oh, you want that. And mysteriously Krishna starts to arrange. That's why in the 11th canto, there's a verse that says, talks about pure devotional service are so valuable that just hearing about it, just talking about it, just being present in an audience where there are discussions of pure devotional service brings incalculable benefit to you. Even just, yeah, that sounds good. That kind of appreciation brings you benefit that you cannot calculate. Anything else?
I have a question, Raj. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. One of the texts that you mentioned,
One of the,
in one of the texts that you were reading,
yes,
Mukunda, he was singing a song to Srimati Radharani. Srimati Radharani. And that was just a point of clarity for me, because Lord Chaitanya is in the mood of Srimati Radharani.
right.
And he's acting as a devotee. However, yeah, I'm a little curious as to why Mukunda is increasing that mood of separation through singing songs of Radharani.
Yes, because Lord Chaitanya has taken the complexion and emotions of Radharani. Sometimes he takes the position, he has taken the position of Srimati Radharani. That includes the emotions and effulgence. And sometimes he appears as Srimati Radharani herself. And sometimes he is in the role of a maidservant of Srimati Radharani. That's there in Chaitanya Charitamrita, tucked away. So all that's going on. So Mukunda knows what to do at the right time. Just like in the performance of the Vrindavan Pastimes chapter, coming up ahead in Madhya Lila. Lord Chaitanya is in the role of maidservant of Srimati Radharani. And in a kirtan, he appears as Srimati Radharani. So all this is going on in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Anything else? Yes.
When we read about Radha Tattva in Chaitanya,
The whole Chaitanya Charitamrita. What do you know? Where you been? It's scattered throughout Chaitanya Charitamrita. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahayanya. Lord Chaitanya is Radha Krishna combined. We say he's Krishna in the role of his devotee, but more confidentially, he's Radha Krishna combined. That's what Ramananda Roy saw at the peak of his realization. What is this I'm seeing? First I thought I was seeing a sannyasi. Now I'm seeing something else. And Lord Chaitanya kind of just, oh, you're just seeing, that's the nature of such a vision, nature of a vision of such a devotee like you. You see, you kind of see things. Just like, that's right. That's because in temples you'll often see Radha Krishna deities with a Gauranga deity right next, revealing that most confidential truth. Of course, it's probably so that most persons who see such an altar don't understand what they're looking at, but that's what's going on. Last questions. Yes.
Maharaj, you mentioned about quoting Mukunda, how devotees in the association we try to increase each other's ecstasies by talking about Krishna. There's some devotees who have this gift or the ability where they're very good at doing that.
Oh, anyone can do it.
How do we develop that?
By read and talk about what you read. And talking about Krishna also means talking about how to improve the service to Krishna and how to avoid the impediments that decrease the service. That's also Krishna Katha. Sometimes Prabhupada would say the most outrageous things about material existence and then say, this is also Krishna Katha. Outrageous things I won't repeat. And say, this is Krishna Katha, and unless our devotees hear this kind of talk, they're going to become weak and go away. So tomorrow we'll continue with the arrival of Mother Sachi, and it's very tender what's going to go on between Sachi Devi and Lord Chaitanya. She's going to see Lord Chaitanya for the first time after he's taken sannyas. It's very poignant, very intense drama, intense situation. She's going to make certain requests, and Lord Chaitanya is going to feel uncomfortable by her requests. And then they're going to work something out. All right. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.